Oh, we're going to have a battle for first place on Sunday. Let's talk some Lions football.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is a Tuesday edition of Locked On Lions, everybody, on the Locked On Podcast Network. Matt Dery with you on a Tuesday, September 20th and a Wednesday, September 21st. Thanks for making us your first listen each and every day right here on Locked On Lions. We are brought to you today by our friends at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on your first entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. That's prizepicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON. Thanks for being with us today and following us on Twitter at Dery Speaks, D-E-R-Y Speaks, at Locked On Lions on Twitter, the Matt Dery Facebook fan page, and also those of you watching, hello, on YouTube, the video portion of the podcast. Check us out on the Locked On Lions YouTube channel. A lot to get to. We got our Week 3 Power Rankings. Lions moving up, moving on up. I'd make a Jefferson's reference, but I think many of you are too young to know what that is. But our executive producer, the great Nathan Litke, sent me the Power Rankings. We'll get into that coming up momentarily. Also, you've got to hear this audio from the Colin Cowherd show today. That's maybe where we lead this show. We're 2 weeks into the season, and national hype is reaching a peak level for your Honolulu Blue and Silver Gladiators. Ron Crackman Crackiola is dancing down Hall Road. The word playoffs is being thrown around for your Detroit Lions. I'll explain coming up momentarily. Also, something the Tigers did today, if the Lions did it, the fan base would be up in arms. But they're not, and I'll explain coming up momentarily. And also, the Lions' next opponent, we scouted them last night a little bit. I think we all watched the game. I don't know what the Vikings were doing last night. Zero clue. But we'll get into that coming up on the program today. Again, we thank you for listening, watching, and joining us here on Locked On Lions. We bring you great content each and every day. We are here. We got the Thursday crossover with Locked On Vikings host Luke Braun coming up, working on a guest for tomorrow. A lot to get to this week, as it's exciting. The Lions are fighting for first place. I know it's 3 games in, but let's have a little fun with it as they face Minnesota in Minnesota coming up this weekend. All right, I got to play you this audio. This is where I want to start the show. Because there's so many routes that we could go. But I got this audio sent to me by Nate, and I watched it again. This is phenomenal. This is like a lot of fun. Hang on, I'm loading this up. But Colin Cowherd, the Herd, whether it's you're watching it on Fox Sports 1 or you're listening to it on Fox Sports Radio or wherever you listen to Colin Cowherd, I always like him. He had Jon Vilma on, NFL analyst, former linebacker, and of course, Vilma did the game last week with Kenny Albert on Fox. They were talking about the Lions and some other teams. Take a listen to this. This is fantastic stuff. Lion fans, you're going to eat this up with a spoon. This is courtesy of Fox Sports Radio and the Herd Colin Cowherd show. Take a listen to this.
I think Nick Sirianni, watching his first press conference, I thought, woo, he is nervous, and he's proven me wrong. I watched Dan Campbell's first press conference, and he's talking about biting kneecaps, and I'm like, oh, brother. But I got to tell you something. Jared Goff at home, you had their game this week, has been excellent. Jared Goff has been excellent. I look at their offensive weapons. They play hard. I mean, Philadelphia had them dead, and they just kept coming back. I know it's crazy, but I look at that division right now. Detroit's got something offensively. I don't know, Jonathan. I think they have a chance to be a wild card playoff team. I watch that offense. There's something there. You saw them this week. What are your thoughts?
Colin, the only issue I have with you right now is that you're not saying it with conviction. You got to say it with conviction. Listen, this team, they can produce offensively. Defensively, they're good enough. Aiden Hutchinson is a phenomenal rookie. Yes, they will be a contender for a playoff spot. Will they win the division? I don't know. Yet to be determined. But I do know that their offense is good enough. Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator, he does a great job of calling the game. And it's also the thing that people don't understand. Those three interior linemen, center, guard, those are backups. Those aren't even their starters. Once the starters come back, if they do come back, you're talking about one of the best offensive lines in the NFL in front of a DeAndre Swift, who I think is one of the most phenomenal young premier running backs in the game. So my only issue, Colin, is that you got to say with more conviction, man, these guys are good. We don't have to write them off anytime anymore. Dan Campbell has them believing. It's a culture of toughness, physicality, and you see the way they run the football. Jared Goff is doing a great job, him and Ben Johnson, of having a great relationship, of getting the ball to Amon-Ra St. Brown, and now really exposing those defenses. They couldn't do it last year. They're doing it now, and they have a shot at making the playoffs.
Wow. Phenomenal. Words being thrown around by Jonathan Vilma. Phenomenal. Great. Wow. I mean, that was just a buttery spread for your Detroit Lions. Colin Cowherd says, hey, I think they might be a wild card team. And Vilma says, you're not saying it with enough conviction. Colin, they're going to be right there. We're 2 games in. Hold on a second. You have to like what the offense is doing. But sitting here saying Ben Johnson is phenomenal, it's been 2 games. So if we go by the Tennessee Titans' first 2 games or the Indianapolis Colts' first 2 games, those seasons are over for those teams. But yet Tennessee's got a proven defense, a great head coach, an all-pro running back. Colts, I mean, I think the Colts roster is a little overrated, but wow. The 1-1 Lions are getting some serious ink. And yes, the NFC does not look good. Yes, last night we saw the Eagles pulverize the Vikings. Now everybody's talking about Philly being the best team in the NFC and possibly being a 1 seed and all of these things. And of course the Lions hung with the Eagles. I mean, the Eagles were up big and then kind of took the gas off. But to the Lions' credit, they hung around. They got it to within 3, nearly almost got the ball back. But wow, I mean, I'm excited too. Okay, you got to be excited about what you're seeing, especially with this offense. But they don't have a lot of depth, all right, especially on defense. And let's just see what happens this Sunday before we start anointing this team as a playoff team. What if they go into Minnesota this week facing an angry Vikings team, and we'll get into this, and get smacked around? It's possible. I'm just throwing a little caution to the wind. I am excited. You should be excited. But playoff, wow. That's unbelievable. Unbelievable. So there you go. Colin Cowherd and Jonathan Vilma on the Herd Show. Whew. I need a toweling off after that. Locked On Lions today brought to you by Turo, the world's largest car-sharing marketplace. With Turo, you can book any car you want whenever you want it from a community of local hosts. Browse a huge selection of vehicles for just about any occasion or budget across the U.S., Canada, and the UK. Book a spacious SUV or minivan for a family road trip. How about a classic or luxury car for a special event, birthday, or holiday? Maybe the Tigers picked up Scott Harris today in a beautiful luxury sedan from Turo. It's possible. Find affordable economy cars if you're on a budget and just need to get from A to B. That's what they do at Turo.com. Every trip is backed by liability insurance. Terms, conditions, and exclusions apply. Many Turo hosts can even deliver the car right to your door. That's awesome. Ditch the boring rental cars and find your drive at Turo, Turo.com. All right, so Locked On Lions for a Tuesday. Where do we want to go next? I watched Monday Night Football last night, and I think we all got a chance to watch the Philadelphia Eagles pulverize the Minnesota Vikings and handle their business in a 24-7 win. And what I liked about Philly, again, was they did the same thing they did to the Lions. Jalen Hurts ran wild. He didn't have a great day passing again, but he had one touchdown pass through the air to Quez Watkins. He had 2 touchdowns on the ground. The Eagles are very, very, very creative offensively with what they do with Hurts with the RPO action. And the Eagles defense intercepted Kirk Cousins 3 times, twice, of course, from our old buddy Darius Slay. And Matt Patricia was trending on Twitter last night because so many people were talking about how Matt Patricia ran Darius Slay out of town. Said he wasn't a good, the great player, all these things. And you're watching Slay in Philly just absolutely explode and play so well. But the one thing I noticed from last night about Minnesota is that Kirk Cousins is still Kirk Cousins. And if the Lions and Aaron Glenn and that coaching staff decide that they're going to send the house this weekend and they're going to blitz and they're going to rush and they're able to get in his face, they're going to have a good day. That's how you beat Minnesota. Now, the Vikings, some days, their offensive line is good and it is stout and they give Cousins time to throw. He picks teams apart. We've seen for years Kirk Cousins come into Ford Field and have success against the Lions. We've seen that. We've seen Dalvin Cook on the ground. Last night, the Vikings came out throwing. I have no idea why. That was a horrible game plan by Kevin O'Connell and the offensive staff with Minnesota. It made no sense to me. The Lions ran all over the Eagles last week. DeAndre Swift had a huge day with 140-plus yards. Jamal Williams was able to gouge him. The Lions had no problems in week 1 running the football. And here comes Minnesota coming out firing offensively and not running their Pro Bowl running back in Dalvin Cook. Again, short week for Minnesota, coming off this loss. Harrison Smith, their very good safety, was in concussion protocol last night. We'll see if he plays this week. But the line opened at 7.5 and is now down to 5 for Minnesota. So let's see what happens. But the Lions must attack Cousins. Aaron Glenn is chomping at the bit to get a piece of Kirk Cousins and to do what he did in week 1 and to an extent last week as well. And that is get the, get that pass rush going. Come at teams. Come at them. The line is back up to 5.5. All right, so it was 7.5. Now it's at 5.5 on betonline.net. I wanted to double check that. So it's not 5, it's 5.5 right now on betonline.net. But Kirk Cousins was horrible last night. Horrible. He was terrible. And he had pressure in his face. And even when he didn't have pressure, he made some poor throws. This is going to be a huge test for Jeff Okudah going up against Justin Jefferson. He's had a good first couple of games. Let's see how healthy those Lions cornerbacks are against arguably the best receiver in football. But if you watched Minnesota last night, you saw a team that can be beaten for sure. And game plan was bad. Cousins was bad. And the Lions, they want to attack. They want to come at you. So we'll see if, that's what they do this week. But I'm excited to see what Aaron Glenn has dialed up. I liked what Jon Vilma. Aiden Hutchinson's a phenomenal rookie. After the first game, everybody said he sucked. After this last game, now he's phenomenal. But, man, Sunday's going to be fun. It is. Don't have a pick yet. I got to do more research. I got to think about this some more. But you're going to know Aaron Glenn's watched the film. When Kirk Cousins has time, he has a good game. When he doesn't have time and he's flushed out of the pocket, he's a sitting target. You can get to him. You can rattle him. He's had good games, though, against the Lions, notoriously. And remember last year, the Lions had Minnesota beaten in Minnesota. And they let Kirk Cousins, pick him apart at the end with the 3-man rush. And then Greg Joseph kicked, a 60-yard field goal, 57-yard field goal, 54-yard field goal, whatever it was. So I'm excited to see what goes down on Sunday. All right, 2 more quick notes, including power rankings. Where do the Lions sit at ESPN.com's power rankings, and a nugget about the Tigers announcement today. We'll do all that coming up next. First, though, we got to tell you about our friends at PrizePicks. Daily fantasy that is so much fun. You're making entries, you're picking players, and it's not against other people. It's against the PrizePicks projection. For example, last night, all the Monday Night Football action. If you had Josh Allen throwing for more than 320 yards, Derrick Henry rushing for less than 85 yards, Stephon Diggs more than 2 touchdowns, you would have won some money last night at PrizePicks. You picked 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, you can want to win up to 10 times your money on any entry. No competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch. That includes NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, women's hoops, soccer, WNBA, and more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It is that easy. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com and sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. All right, Week 3 NFL Power Rankings from ESPN.com. The usual suspects at the top. Buffalo coming at number 1. Kansas City number 2. Tampa Bay also 2-0 number 3. The Rams 4. Miami up 6 spots to number 5. Chargers, Packers, Eagles at 8. A little bit surprised there. Baltimore at 9. And San Francisco comes in at 10. We didn't go over these last week, but the Lions last week were ranked 27th in the league in the power rankings from ESPN, out of course, 32 teams. Let's see this week. Your Detroit Lions sit 7 spots up at number 20. Biggest early adjustment, writes ESPN.com, improvement from the secondary. Lions sit at number 20, ahead of Dallas, ahead of Tennessee, ahead of the Raiders. Minnesota, this week's opponent, is at number, hold on, where is it? Minnesota sits at, are they behind? Number 11. Wow, last week they were number 10 after beating the Packers. So there it is. Lions sitting at number 20. I think that is about right. I think Detroit looked good this past week. I know it was Washington, but there's some bad teams in this league. Tennessee is really struggling. The Raiders are struggling. Jacksonville, I know, won last week, but they're not as good as the Lions. Your bottom teams, by the way, Atlanta 0-2 at 32, Houston 0-1 at 31, and Carolina at 0-2, number 30. Lions moving up, baby, number 20 in this week's ESPN NFL Power Rankings. All right, one last thing here on the Tuesday edition. Today, the Tigers announced their new general manager. It was reported yesterday, then made official last night. And then today at 2:30, they held a press conference down at Comerica Park. Scott Harris, the Giants general manager, leaving his post there to become president of baseball operations for the Detroit Tigers. And today, Chris Ilitch, Tigers owner, was asked who was in on the search, who helped him hire Scott Harris. And Chris Ilitch said A.J. Hinch and others, including Steve Yzerman. Steve Yzerman helped hire Scott Harris. Everybody, Media types, fans were all over social media today going, oh, how cool is that? Stevie was helping out. Stevie helped hire the Tigers GM. I'm not saying that Steve Yzerman, Chris Ilitch can't give him a call or whatever and pick his brain. Could you imagine if the Detroit Lions and the Ford family reached out to Steve Yzerman, what fans would say? Just my opinion. I think the fans would say, they're asking a hockey general manager to help pick the football GM? But see, when it's the Ilitches and it's everybody's favorite baseball team, and the Detroit media always loves their Tigers, right? It's just free pass central here. Chris Ilitch got bashed for about 48 hours when he fired Al Avila and basically said, well, Verlander, I didn't make that trade, Al did. But otherwise now he's the belle of the ball again because he went and asked Stevie what he thought. But if the Lions did that, media and fans in this town would be enraged. What would a hockey GM know about helping to pick a football general manager? But see, when it's the Tigers and it's all under the Ilitch umbrella, I think they're treated differently. That's just my opinion. I don't know if Scott Harris is going to do well or not. Seems to be a pretty bright guy. Everybody said he won the press conference today, but everybody loved Al Avila when he took over. Oh, Al knows all the Latin players. Al's got relationships. Al's a great guy. How'd that turn out? Scott Harris will probably do pretty well. He seems to know what he's doing. But this narrative that he's going to come in and rebuild the Tigers so fast that they're going to take over this division, be very careful. The Twins are loaded in their farm system and just had 18 players on the injured list. They're going to be back next year. The White Sox have a really good roster. They get a real manager next year, they're going to be dangerous. And the Guardians are in first place. And oh, by the way, the youngest team in baseball with young guys galore, soaring. So just, before we start crowning Scott Harris, be careful. All right, that'll do it for Locked On Lions for this Tuesday edition. Thank you for making us your first listen. We'll do it again tomorrow.